Cowboys Nation, this changes everything. We're about to reveal the defensive players who could completely transform Dallas in 2025, and some of these names are going to shock you. If you care about this team's Super Bowl hopes, you need to hear every single word of this breakdown. Make sure you hit that subscribe button right now and smash the notification bell because we're dropping daily Cowboys content you absolutely cannot miss. Trust me, you do not want to be left behind when these predictions come true. All right, let's dive straight into the heart of what could make or break the Cowboys season, and I'm talking about the defensive side of the football. Now, before we get into the names, we need to address something really important here. This isn't about rookies or first-year players making an instant splash. No. This is about established guys who've been in the system, who know what it takes, who are ready to absolutely explode onto the scene and become game changers for this franchise. We're talking breakout candidates, not instant impact rookies. There's a massive difference, and you're about to understand exactly why that matters for Dallas. Let's be brutally honest for a second. The Cowboys' defense last season was an absolute disaster. I'm not sugarcoating it. It was painful to watch. We saw blown coverages, missed tackles, and a complete inability to generate consistent pressure when it mattered most. So when we talk about breakout candidates on defense, we're not just talking about nice stories or feel-good moments. We're talking about absolute necessities. These players have to step up, or Dallas is going to be in serious trouble trying to compete in what might be the most loaded NFC we've seen in years. The urgency here cannot be overstated. So who's first on this list? Let me introduce you to a name that should already be familiar, but is about to become a household staple in Cowboys conversations. Dorance Armstrong. Now wait, before you say anything, I know what you're thinking. Armstrong has been around, right? But here's the thing. This edge rusher is positioned to absolutely dominate this upcoming season if everything breaks right. He's currently rehabbing from hip labrum surgery, and the reports coming out of the facility have been nothing short of incredible. We're hearing he's been doing individual work throughout June, which is a phenomenal sign considering the severity of hip surgeries and how long they typically take to recover from. Let me take you back to when Armstrong was drafted out of Boston College. The scouting reports were clear. This guy was a menace against the run. He could set the edge, he could hold his ground, and he wasn't getting pushed around by offensive tackles. But the big question mark, the elephant in the room, was whether that run defense ability would translate to the NFL level. Would he be strong enough? Would he be quick enough? Would he have the technique to hang with the absolute freaks of nature he'd be facing every single Sunday? And you know what? Last season, even with all the chaos surrounding that defense, Armstrong proved he absolutely could handle it. His run defense was legitimately impressive. He was better than expected, better than advertised, and he showed he belonged on an NFL field. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is where the breakout potential really starts to reveal itself. The pass rush numbers weren't quite there yet. Now, let's be fair for a moment. How is anyone supposed to generate consistent pressure when you're playing on literally the worst defense in football? It's almost impossible. Quarterbacks had all day to throw because the coverage was getting torched. The scheme was predictable. There was no cohesion. Armstrong was set up to fail. And even in that environment, he showed flashes of what he could become. Here's what really stood out in the tape. Around the midway point of last season, Armstrong seemed to hit a wall. His production fell off a cliff. Was it the hip issue that eventually required surgery? Was it the rookie wall that so many first and second-year players experience? Probably a combination of both. His tackles for loss dropped by more than half. He went from double-digit quarterback hits in the first half to just 2 in the second half. His pressure rate plummeted by about 4.5%, which over the course of an entire season is absolutely massive. That's the difference between being a rotational player and being a legitimate starter. But there was this one play against the Giants that tells you everything you need to know about Armstrong's potential. He absolutely demolished the quarterback for what should have been a sack, but it got wiped out because of a penalty on New York. It was one of those moments where you jump off your couch screaming at the TV because you know you just witnessed something special, only to have it erased by a yellow flag. That play showed the explosiveness, the power, the finishing ability that makes scouts and coaches fall in love with edge rushers. Now, let me be clear about expectations here because I want to keep this realistic. Is Armstrong ever going to be a 16-sack guy like he was in his final year at Boston College? Probably not. That's elite territory reserved for the absolute best in the league. But can he be a guy who gets you 8, 9, maybe 10 sacks while playing excellent run defense and collapsing the pocket consistently? Absolutely. 100% yes. And for a Cowboys team that is desperate, and I mean absolutely desperate for pass rush production beyond Micah Parsons, that would be a game-changing development. Think about what that does for the defense. You've got Parsons on one side demanding constant attention, and if Armstrong breaks out on the other side, offensive coordinators are going to lose their minds trying to figure out protection schemes. It opens up everything. The secondary gets more time to cover. The linebackers can be more aggressive. The entire defense elevates. This is why Armstrong's potential breakout isn't just a nice story. It's a critical piece of the puzzle for Dallas having any shot at making noise in the playoffs. Let's move to the next name, and this one is going to get Cowboys fans absolutely fired up. DeMarvion Overshown. Now, I'll admit, I might be stretching the definition of breakout candidate here because we've already seen what this guy can do when he's healthy and confident. But after the nightmare that was last season, getting back to that form, getting back to that level of play would feel like a complete breakout, even if technically it's more of a return to dominance. Let me paint the picture of what Overshown was before injuries derailed everything. This linebacker was flying around the field making plays that had Cowboys fans wondering if Dallas had found themselves a steal. The instincts were off the charts. The speed was legitimate. The tackling was violent and decisive. He wasn't just participating in plays, he was taking them over. And then the injuries hit, and everything fell apart. Last season was brutal to watch because you could see a player who wasn't confident in his body, who was hesitant, who had lost that aggressiveness that made him special. But here's the exciting part, and this is where the hope comes rushing back in. All reports suggest Overshown is healthy. Not just functional, not just cleared to play, but actually healthy and moving like the player we saw in 2024. He's probably added some weight, likely playing closer to 225 or 230 pounds instead of his listed 220, which actually fits perfectly with what the Cowboys need from that Mike linebacker position. And that's the real story here. There's a legitimate chance that Overshown becomes the starting middle linebacker for this Cowboys defense, and if that happens, everything changes. One of the biggest failures of the previous defensive scheme was the complete refusal to utilize the blitz effectively. You had athletic linebackers like Damone Clark and Overshown, who could absolutely terrorize quarterbacks if you let them loose, and they were just sitting back in coverage playing passive football. It was maddening to watch. But with a new defensive coordinator, with a fresh scheme, with a philosophy that actually wants to be aggressive, Overshown could be unleashed in ways we haven't seen yet. Imagine him knifing through gaps on third down. Imagine him covering tight ends in the passing game. Imagine him flying to the football on every single snap. That's the player Dallas needs him to be, and that's the player he's fully capable of becoming if he stays healthy. The third name on this list is crucial for the secondary, and it's a position where Dallas absolutely has to find answers. Shavon Revel. This cornerback has all the physical tools you could possibly want. He's long, he's athletic, he's got ball skills that show up on tape, and he fits exactly what the Cowboys look for in their defensive backs. But last season was a complete write-off because he was coming back from a serious knee injury and admitted himself that he wasn't comfortable, wasn't confident, and wasn't playing like himself. Confidence at the cornerback position isn't just important, it's everything. You're on an island. You're getting targeted. You're going to get beat sometimes, no matter how good you are. If you don't have that borderline insane level of self-belief, you're going to get exposed and attacked relentlessly. Red didn't have that confidence last year, and it showed. But the reports from minicamp are night and day different. He's shed the knee brace, he's moving fluidly, he's playing with confidence. And if that version of Shavon Red shows up for a full season, the Cowboys' secondary immediately gets exponentially better. Think about what Red showed at Eastern Carolina when he was healthy. He was making plays on the ball, he was shutting down his side of the field, he was showing legitimate NFL traits. The only reason he fell in the draft was medical concerns about that knee. Well, if the medical concerns are gone, if the knee is fully healed, then Dallas essentially has a high-level cornerback talent that they got at a discount. That's how you build championship rosters. The competition at cornerback is fierce. You've got Kelvin Joseph, you've got Jordan Lewis, you've got Bland. History tells us that with how often corners get injured, all of these guys are going to play significant snaps at some point during the season. But if Red can emerge as a legitimate starting caliber corner, that gives Dallas depth, flexibility, and most importantly, talent at a position where you can never have enough. This is a make or break year for Red, and all signs point toward him being ready to make the leap. The final name might be the biggest stretch on this entire list, but there's reason to be intrigued. Kalen Carson. This cornerback has been getting first-team reps during practice, which tells you the coaching staff sees something they like. Let me take you back to Carson's first game against the Browns when he first suited up for Dallas. Cowboys fans were buzzing. He looked smooth, he looked confident, he made plays. People were genuinely excited, thinking Dallas might have stumbled into a gem of a player. And then it all fell apart. He only appeared in 6 games. He dealt with injuries constantly, and as we all know, you don't get better at football by not playing football. You need reps, you need experience, you need to go through the grind. Carson hasn't had that opportunity yet. The confidence seems to be an issue. Getting beat in practice and in games will do that to a young player. But if the coaches are giving him first-team reps, they're trying to build that confidence back up. They're giving him opportunities to make plays and prove he belongs. Is Carson a lock to be a major contributor? Absolutely not. But the potential is there, and in a year where Dallas desperately needs bodies and talent in the secondary, any player who can step up and provide quality snaps is going to be incredibly valuable. The competition is fierce with guys like Devin Moore pushing for playing time, but Carson has the advantage of experience in the system. If he can stay healthy and stack together some solid performances in training camp, he could absolutely carve out a significant role. Now, here's something really important to address, and Cowboys fans need to understand this context. The list of defensive breakout candidates is shorter than what you'd typically expect, and there are very legitimate reasons for that. First, we're not counting first-year players as breakout candidates because they're in the instant impact category. Guys like Kelvin Joseph coming over in the trade, Maliek Collins being signed, these are established veterans expected to contribute immediately, not break out. Second, Dallas has turned over about half of their defensive two deep from last season. You've got guys like Winters, Jalen Thompson, Kobe Durant who are returnees, but they're not really in position to break out. They are what they are at this point. You've got established veterans like Kenny Clark and Osa Odigizua, who are solid players, but not breakout candidates. And then you've got a bunch of guys who are literally fighting just to make the roster. Someone like Jay Toya isn't guaranteed a spot, so how can we call him a breakout candidate? The reality is that Dallas went out and acquired or signed so much defensive talent that the opportunities for true breakouts are limited. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It means the roster is more complete, more veteran-laden, and less reliant on unproven players taking massive leaps. But it does mean that the guys we've talked about today, Armstrong, Overshown, Red, and Carson, carry even more weight. Their development and production could be the difference between a defense that's just okay and a defense that can actually carry this team deep into January. Cowboys Nation, these 4 players represent hope. They represent the possibility that Dallas can turn around what was an embarrassing defensive performance last season and become a unit that opponents actually fear. The talent is there, the scheme should be better, and the motivation is through the roof. If even two of these four players hit their potential and truly break out, the entire complexion of this team changes. The playoff hopes become realistic. The Super Bowl conversations become legitimate. Everything shifts. So let me know in the comments right now, which of these breakout candidates are you most excited about? Are you riding with Armstrong and that pass rush potential? Are you betting on Overshown returning to dominance at linebacker? Are you believing in Red to finally show what he can do healthy? Or are you taking a flyer on Carson becoming a surprise contributor? Drop your thoughts below because I want to hear from you. And make sure you're subscribed because we're breaking down every single development as training camp approaches. This is going to be an incredible season, and you don't want to miss a single moment of coverage. Let's go, Cowboys!